Operation Midnight Climax, Secrets on Trial. When the fragments of MKUltra surfaced in the 1970s, the American public was confronted with something that defied belief. The notion that their own government had drugged its citizens without consent, hidden in brothels, prisons, and hospitals, sounded like the premise of a paranoid thriller. And yet, according to official records, it was all true. But the exposure of Midnight Climax did more than stain the CIA's reputation. It poured gasoline on a cultural fire that was already burning. For by the 1970s, LSD was no longer a clandestine tool of intelligence agencies. It had escaped the laboratory, seeped into the streets, and become the chemical heartbeat of a generation. Historians trace the escape of LSD from the CIA's grip in curious ways. Some argue that the agency itself indirectly fueled the drug's spread. Students and researchers who received government funding under MKUltra grants later became evangelists of psychedelics. One name stands above the rest: Timothy Leary. Leary, a Harvard psychologist, began experimenting with LSD in the early 1960s. Though his research was not directly part of Midnight Climax, he was connected to the same network of grants and researchers funded by the CIA's fronts. What began as a controlled academic project quickly spiraled into a cultural revolution. "Turn on, tune in, drop out," Leary declared. And millions listened. The irony is chilling. The very drug the CIA sought to master as a weapon of control became a banner of rebellion against the system itself. The counterculture of the 1960s embraced LSD as a path to enlightenment, creativity, and freedom. Music, art, and politics all became infused with psychedelic imagery and ideals. San Francisco, the city that once housed George White's safe houses, became the epicenter of the hippie movement. But beneath the flowers and music, shadows remained. Some whispered that the spread of LSD was no accident. That the CIA, frustrated with its unpredictability as a weapon, had deliberately allowed it to flood the streets, turning an entire generation into experimental subjects on a grand scale. Was the counterculture itself a social laboratory, a vast midnight climax played out not in hidden rooms but across cities and campuses? The evidence is circumstantial, but the parallels are disturbing. The same drug once used to entrap and manipulate was now reshaping society. The observers may have moved from behind one-way mirrors to behind the veil of cultural movements, watching the chaos unfold. By the mid-1970s, the public demanded answers. The Church Committee, chaired by Senator Frank Church, uncovered a litany of abuses by the intelligence community: assassinations, coups, domestic surveillance, and among them, MKUltra. George White, long retired, was called to account. His testimony was cagey, evasive. He admitted to the safe houses, to the prostitutes, to the LSD. But he downplayed the significance, insisting it had all been minor, even laughable. "I was a soldier," White later wrote in a private letter. "I was carrying out orders. I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest?" His words, dripping with cynicism, revealed the grotesque undercurrent of the operation: not science, not patriotism, but indulgence cloaked in authority. The Senate reports painted a partial picture. They confirmed the existence of Midnight Climax, but the details were fragmentary. Key files had been destroyed. Witnesses hedged their answers. Victims were nearly impossible to trace. What lingered was ambiguity, a fog of uncertainty. And in that fog, conspiracy theories thrived. Some claim that prominent figures have been lured into the safe houses and compromised. That politicians, businessmen, even foreign diplomats have been drugged and recorded, their secrets stored in vaults for leverage. Others believe the program had never truly ended, that its techniques were absorbed into other covert projects, continuing in new forms long after the safe houses closed. The truth remains buried, shredded with the documents in 1973. But the suspicion endures, casting a long shadow over every revelation of intelligence overreach that followed. The cultural consequences were profound. The revelation of government-sponsored drugging eroded public trust at a time when faith in institutions was already crumbling. Vietnam, Watergate, and now MKUltra, each blow chipped away at the image of America as a transparent democracy. In literature and film, the specter of midnight climax became a motif. Novels imagined secret experiments, hidden laboratories, unseen forces manipulating minds. Hollywood turned the paranoia into thrillers, blurring the line between fact and fiction. But for the victims, those anonymous men who walked into San Francisco brothels only to emerge shattered, the story was no fiction. Their lives were the price of secrecy. And because their names were never recorded, their stories remain untold. Some may have descended into madness, unable to explain what had happened to them. Others may have died believing they had glimpsed hell itself. To the CIA, they were simply data points. To history, they are ghosts. The most haunting legacy of Midnight Climax is the question of intent. Was it truly about mind control, about unlocking the secrets of the human psyche? Or was it about power, leverage, and the cynical exploitation of human weakness? According to official records, the CIA abandoned LSD as a tool of control, deeming it too unreliable. But if that were true, why did the safe houses persist for nearly a decade? Why were so many tapes made, so many sessions recorded, if the results were useless? Some believe the agency lied. That the real value lay not in the drug itself, but in the confessions it unlocked, the secrets it revealed, the blackmail it produced. If so, then Midnight Climax was not a failure. It was a success, a dark, silent success whose echoes may still reverberate through intelligence operations today. Even now, researchers chase the remnants. Declassified documents surface in fragments, often heavily redacted. Journalists follow leads, interview surviving witnesses, sift through archives. But the heart of the story remains obscured. And perhaps that is intentional. The destruction of records in 1973 was no accident. It was a purge, a deliberate erasure. What we know of Midnight Climax is not the story itself, but its shadow. Imagine what must have been in those shredded files: names, dates, photographs, recordings. Evidence not just of experiments, but of crimes. Evidence that could have toppled careers, shaken governments, exposed a rot at the very core of authority. That evidence is gone. But the suspicion it leaves behind is more corrosive than certainty. In San Francisco, the buildings still stand. Tourists walk past them unaware of the history hidden in their walls. Few know that behind those windows, men were broken, secrets extracted, and history quietly altered. Some say that at night, if you linger long enough, you can almost feel it, the sense of being watched, of unseen eyes behind the glass. The city remembers, even if the world does not. And this is the curse of Midnight Climax, not simply that it happened, but that it could happen again. For what is to stop an agency that once drugged its own citizens in brothels from trying new methods today, under new names, with new tools? The technology has changed. The surveillance is digital, the manipulation more subtle. But the philosophy, the hunger for control, remains eternal. As the story closes in on its final chapter, one question lingers like a stain that cannot be erased. Did Operation Midnight Climax ever truly end? The mirrors may have shattered, the tapes may have burned, the safe houses may have been abandoned. But the techniques, the art of entrapment, the manipulation of desire and fear, the alchemy of secrets, those never disappeared. They survive in whispers, in rumors of later programs, in the uneasy suspicion that even now, unseen watchers refine new ways to break the human will. And perhaps that is the final lesson of Midnight Climax: the most dangerous experiments are not those written in files, but those etched into methods, carried forward by men who learned in the shadows and never stepped back into the light.